What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host, who does the most, Ethan Smith. Hope you guys are all having a phenomenal Thursday, November 3rd. I just got off of work. I will also let you know I'm dealing with a little bit of a sore throat. So today's episode might be a little shorter than what you guys are normally used to, but we'll see. But on today's episode, we have yet another mailbag episode. It was supposed to be yesterday, but I felt the need to talk about Key Brian Hayes yesterday after he was absolutely robbed of a Gold Glove award by Rawlings, and he didn't win the Baseball Bible Award. So I've talked about that on yesterday's episode, so make sure you go check that out. We're also going to talk about a couple other things. The mailbag questions today are in regards to a pair of Cleveland pitchers that the Pirates might have their eyes on as far as trading for these guys with prospects with the Cleveland Guardians. Which Pittsburgh team will win their next playoff game / playoff series? Just a little fun question. And my own take on who the Pirates should re-sign, with their marquee free agents being Roberto Perez and Ben Gamel. All of that and more on today's episode of Locked On Pirates, which of course is brought to you by the wonderful people over at SimpliSafe. Thank you guys also for listening to this podcast every single day, as you always do here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. And with that said, guys, let's get into today's episode, everybody.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to that Pirates podcast, everybody. I am, of course, your host, who does the most, Ethan Smith. Hope you guys, again, are having a phenomenal Thursday here on November 3rd. We are already in the month of November. It feels like Halloween was ages ago already. Thanksgiving is in the air. Christmas will be here soon. It is the holiday season. So hopefully you guys are all having a wonderful start to that. On today's episode, as mentioned, I got two questions from Pit Panther today on our mailbag episode. Of course, it was supposed to be up yesterday. We're doing it today, and we're going to get right into it. As I said before, we'll see how my throat holds up. But with that said, let's get into today's episode. Thoughts on Aaron Savali or Zach Plesac potentially being on the move? Should the Pirates get involved to potentially land one or both of them? And what would the return look like if the Pirates actually did it? So I've brought up the idea of Zach Plesac and Aaron Savali for quite a while because the Cleveland Guardians do have some young arms over there. Trisha McKenzie, of course, Shane Bieber is their ace over there. So it wouldn't surprise me for a team that just did make a playoff run to possibly hold on to these guys. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they did move on from them to kind of give some leverage for this team moving forward. And what do I mean by that? Well, teams like the Rays, if you haven't noticed, teams like the Guardians, even teams like the Mariners for the longest time, whenever they had success or got to the playoffs, normally they'd fall short, as we usually see. And then you would start seeing those little trades that you wouldn't think much of at the time, but they have a long term success rate in terms of these kind of trades. Like you see the Tampa Bay Rays, of course, with the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Chris Archer trade. They get Tyler Glasnow, Shane Baz, and Austin Meadows. Ended up being a very phenomenal trade and a big integral part of why the Rays made the playoffs in the World Series and the playoffs in the 2020 truncated year. And for me, that kind of move for the Guardians would make sense, especially, I believe, because Savali and Plesac will be free agents soon. They're both 27 years old. We're going to pull up Aaron Savali first. And of the two, I think I do like Aaron Savali a little bit more. Of course, you see that pitch distribution from 2022. He has the cutter, the fastball, the curveball, the changeup, and the slider. He really likes using that cutter, the fastball, and then switching it to the curveball. And you also see his average miles per hour there as well. Stays about around the low 90s, but the fact that he can go from low 90s fastball to a 76 mile per hour curveball is pretty good stuff. Of course, his average exit velocity was like right in the middle of the pack this year. He was a very big guy in the K percentage, very, very, very good in the base on balls percentage and the fastball spin and curve spin. Again, his chase rate was up there too. Now, his whiff rate, his barrel rate, his slugging, his hard hit percentage, those are numbers that are very, very concerning to me. Now, Savali, yeah, is a guy that you can look at for the Pittsburgh Pirates and say, okay, you have Keller, you have Contreras, you're going to probably have a mix of like Luis Ortiz and JT Brubaker in the rotation. Savali adding to that rotation is a major, major plus. He might not be crazy. He's not an ace in the hole or anything, but he's definitely a guy that the Pirates need to take a hard look at, I think. And the kind of return on these guys, I think, is a little hard to judge just because of the idea that for the Pirates, in the current position they're in, there are some prospects you can make an argument for and say, okay, this guy can probably move. Like, we don't see him fitting here. And we're going to get into that a little bit later when I talk about Ben Gamel and Roberto Perez. I could see Travis Swaggerty being involved in a deal like this. I could see G1 Bay or Tucupita Marcano being involved in a deal like this. Excuse me. It just really matters on what the Guardians would want back, and it also matters if they even want to move him anyway. So this was Aaron Savali. Zach Plesac, on the other hand, there's a lot of blue on that percentile ranking from Baseball Savant that is not very fun to look at. Of course, fastball, slider, changeup, curveball is his pitch distribution. Uses that fastball a lot. Uses the slider and changeup a lot. When you look at his percentile rankings and see that much blue and the only two red things are based on balls percentage and chase rate, Plesac would be a guy, I think, if I had to pick between the two, I would pick Savali 100%. Plesac is obviously the one I think that the Guardians would be more willing to get rid of at this juncture. And I look at the StatCast stuff and all of the Baseball Savant stuff mainly because it gives you more of a clear picture outside of ERA and win-loss percentage and opponent's batting average. It kind of shows you that a guy like Zach Plesac does struggle with the spin on his fastball. He does struggle with the curveball spin. He does struggle with the hard hit percentage and the average exit velocity. So he could get guys to chase, but also you're looking at a guy who, if he doesn't get you to chase and you get any kind of contact, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a hard hit ball. And for a Pirates team that overall was not great defensively this year, that's not something I think that I would want on this team. Now, speaking on both of them, I don't think the Pirates would obviously go after both. I think that's a little too much of a stretch. But I think Aaron Savali is definitely a guy that I would not mind having on this baseball team going into next year to kind of be an anchor of sorts in the rotation, give you 5 innings, give you 6 innings, eat up some innings, while Quinn Priester, Carmen Mlodzinski, Tanaj Thomas, Cody Bolton, a lot of the arms that the Pirates still want to have looks on are still getting ready in the minor league system. We'll get into the joking question here in a moment and then talk about Ben Gamel and Roberto Perez. But I want to let you guys know about SimpliSafe. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package theft spiked nationally? That's why our friends at SimpliSafe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your SimpliSafe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can priority police response. SimpliSafe was named the best home security system of 2022 by US News and World Report a 3rd year in a row. SimpliSafe is a whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, and smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 per day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. And with the top rated SimpliSafe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere, arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/URL today. This is your biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnMLB. There's no place like SimpliSafe. So our other question that was submitted today, a little bit jokingly, is being a Pittsburgh sports fan at this current juncture, which is the second time that I've used that word usage today, has been interesting in the year of 2022. Because you get Ben's final home game against the Cleveland Browns. Steelers make the playoffs, get shellacked by Kansas City. The Penguins lose to the Rangers in the first round of the playoffs. We then move to baseball, where the Pirates have their third straight 100-loss season in a row. Now we move into the NFL season. The Steelers are 2-6. The Penguins, as of late, have had multiple games where they've blown multi-goal leads and have lost 6 straight. And the Pirates offseason is going to probably go like most Pirates offseasons go. No major moves, just small moves. So the question that was asked is, what happens first? The Steelers win a playoff game, or the Pirates or Penguins win a playoff series? So if you're looking at the state of Pittsburgh sports here, by the way, Hunter Hodes of Locked On Penguins and Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers on top of Nick Farba of Locked On Pitt. Wonderful guys. They're all awesome. Make sure you go check them out. The Steelers are in flux mainly because of the obvious issues of Matt Canada and having a rookie quarterback and injuries to your top players like TJ Watt. The Penguins are starting to get to the point where you know that Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang cannot play forever. Meanwhile, the Pirates have probably the most optimism in the farm system they've had in a half decade. Just based off of my general consensus of being a Pittsburgh fan for as long as I have, I would opt and say the Steelers win a playoff game before the Penguins or Pirates win a playoff series. Mainly because of the fact that I think getting a top pick in the 2023 draft is going to be very big for the Steelers team. You've seen teams like the 49ers go 4-12 and then make the Super Bowl the very next year. It's just the nature of football. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Pirates sneak in there and do it before both come 2024. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So those are our questions for today. But I did want to talk about two guys on this Pirates team that obviously I don't think have a long-term future here, obviously because right now they're free agents. But what the Pirates should do considering Roberto Perez and Ben Gamel. Those guys are your top 2 free agents at the current moment. And for Pittsburgh, I think you could tell that the catcher position after Roberto Perez was injured for the entire year was in flux the entire year. There was never an answer there. Tyler Heineman didn't look too bad. Jose Godoy was there. Andrew Knapp was there at one point. There was just never really a consistent factor at the catcher position. Roberto Perez all year has said he's loved Pittsburgh. He's loved the rehab process with the coaches. He's loved everything that the Pirates have done in terms of how they've treated him since bringing him in. I do think a reunion between the Pirates and Roberto Perez is definitely in the cards. One, because I don't know how much interest Roberto Perez is going to get outside of the Pirates organization. And 2, there's an obvious need there. Now, Roberto Perez isn't going to give you the crazy statistical at-bat stats that you would think you would get from him, which you're not going to. But defensively, I think, is where you need that position to be shored up. You saw Jacob Stallings do it for a long time. You saw Russell Martin do it for a long time. You saw Francisco Cervelli do it in stints here in Pittsburgh. And when the catcher position is solidified on a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates, the team inherently will get better because Roberto Perez is the kind of catcher that's going to make these young pitchers better. So definitely I'd say 85-15. I think there's like a outside shot he goes somewhere else, but I would say about 80-85% he will be wearing number 55 for the Pittsburgh Pirates again going into 2023. But I also wouldn't rule out the Pirates even going out again and signing another player at the catcher position just because they saw what happened this year. Go ahead and have your backup plan. Now, your backup plan is obviously Endy Rodriguez and Henry Davis, but who knows when those guys are ready and who knows when the Pirates want to bring them up. Ben Gamel, on the other hand, I think his reunion with the Pittsburgh Pirates is definitely way far, far, far out. Mainly because you look at the outfield structure of this team right now. You know Brian Reynolds is going to start. You know Jack Sawinski is probably going to start. Then you have Cal Mitchell, Kanan Smith and Jigba, G1 Bay, potentially O'Neal Cruz if the Pirates go that route. There's a lot of different directions the Pirates could go in the outfield. Ben Gamel, I've heard the little rumors that Ben Gamel can move to first base. I don't buy it in the slightest. I don't think he needs to play the first base position. And Ben Gamel brings you a certain type of energy when he's out there on the baseball field. He does. But I don't think it's worth re-signing him when he's just going to block off another prospect. And thinking that way logistically, I could see the Pirates going out and signing an outfielder in free agency, just somebody higher caliber than Ben Gamel. Because again, no offense to Ben Gamel at all. The guy has been phenomenal since he came to Pittsburgh in terms of what his role is. He's played very good defensively in the outfield. He's had some really big jump plays that have also gotten him in trouble in the outfield. But also, he's had some pretty big moments. And I think he could be useful on a competitive team as a fourth outfielder for a team that doesn't have crazy depth at the position in terms of prospects at this current moment. And I think that's what's more likely for Ben Gamel is I think that you're going to see him depart somewhere else, preferably a team that has World Series aspirations in 2023. He can be the fourth outfielder and a bench bat for a quality team. I think I can see that more than seeing Ben Gamel on the Pittsburgh Pirates in 2023. There are plenty of other things to talk about here in the offseason for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And of course, I will be here to cover all of it. But we're going to talk about also here shortly before we wrap up today's episode, because I think you guys can probably tell if you're on YouTube that this is bothering me pretty badly. Last night's World Series game, wow. Second no-hitter of all time in the World Series. Of course, the Houston Astros combined for the no-hitter. Christian Javier was just lights out. The Astros, of course, it seems like 5-0 has been the story of this entire series for the Houston Astros. Of course, they blow it in game one. They don't blow it in game two. Game three never got to that point. And then of game four last night, they get to that point. It's down to 3. And I even said that I thought the Phillies had to win all of their home games to win this series. If Houston wins tonight, the series is over. Plain and simple. You lose 2 of 3 at Citizens Bank Park in the World Series after the way you've played there all postseason. I couldn't see the Phillies going back to Minute Maid Park and winning twice. Now, if the Phillies go out tonight and they win in front of their home crowd in the final home game of the season for them, I think it's a toss-up. I think the Astros win Game 6, and then anything in a Game 7 of the World Series can happen. Anything in any playoff series in baseball that is in the final deciding game of the series can happen. I still want to lean the Phillies just because I think that was a wake-up call for them yesterday that, okay, we're not just going to run through this Astros team. Being no hit was a little drastic, but I definitely think this is the moment for them tonight to keep the series alive, to keep it rolling, go back to Minute Maid Park, give yourself a chance to win in Game 6, or even yourself a chance to win in Game 7. But if the Astros win tonight, crown them champions. They'll win Game 6 handedly, I think. Those are just my little thoughts on the World Series. Been a pretty fun one for all intents and purposes. But guys, thank you for tuning in today and dealing with my sore throat and coughing and sniffling. I just wanted to get you guys this episode today. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to be talking about all the Pirates World Series. So that's going to be a very fun episode to talk about and cover. I think that'll be really fun. Of course, the World Series will be on its off day tomorrow, so that's going to be really interesting. Guys, my name is Ethan Smith. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your coverage of the Pittsburgh Pirates, the minor leagues, and baseball news year round. And I will see you guys on the flip side.